Her boyfriend came in and shot at my baby dad.
And we heard the gunshots in the house. So the son ran.
Okay.
And when I ran in the house, I couldn't get in. The mother let me in, and by that time, this girl she's on the floor.
West Palm Beach police say 19-year-old Keyshawn Shaw shot and killed his estranged girlfriend late last night.
You gotta go. Like, today. And Biggie.
Nothing makes me scared. Do you see my hands? Do they look like they shaking to you? No.
She was only 18, a hairstylist, model, college student. Ambitious, magnetic, full of life. Her name was Kelvi McRae, and she didn't just dream of success, she lived it. From high school basketball courts to styling clients in her bedroom, Kelvi was building something. A brand, a legacy, a future. Thousands followed her on social media for her fashion tips, styling videos, her glow. But behind the ring lights and reels, there was someone watching her far too closely. Someone she once loved. Someone who didn't know how to let go. He said he had nowhere to go. So, she let him stay. Even after they broke up. Even after the control started creeping in. Slow, silent, suffocating. Even after he threatened her.
Ever told a nigga that you ain't want to be with them no more? This what the fuck happened.
On March 5th, she went to the police. Told them everything. The threats, the gun, the strangulation, the smashed windshield. They filed the report, issued a warrant, tried to chase him, and then they let him go. Less than 24 hours later, Kelvi sat at her dinner table, FaceTiming her friends, laughing, relaxed. She had no idea he was on his way back. What happened next would play out in real time, on the phones of 3 helpless friends. One moment she's talking about weekend plans. The next, she's staring straight at the man she feared. And then, her life ended. Kelvi McRae did everything right. She ended the relationship. She filed the report. She asked for help. So why? Wasn't that enough to save her? She wasn't famous yet, but in West Palm Beach, Florida, 18-year-old Kelvi McRae stood out everywhere she went. She had that kind of energy, the kind that turned heads without trying. Whether it was a classroom, a basketball court, or a hair salon chair, she turned into her personal runway. Kelvi made spaces feel brighter, warmer, more alive. Her friends didn't just love her, they believed in her. And that's because Kelvi believed in herself first. By the time she graduated from Inlet Grove High School, Kelvi had already stacked more accomplishments than some people twice her age. She played basketball and ran track, earning respect not just for her hustle, but for her heart. Teachers described her as driven. Friends said she was loyal, and anyone who sat in her chair for a silk press or a sew-in would tell you, this girl had hands. Cosmetology wasn't a fallback plan. It was her passion. While most teenagers were still deciding what they wanted to be, Kelvi was already deep into building her brand. She enrolled in cosmetology school, started collecting her own clients, and began transforming her social media into a portfolio of hair transformations, styling tips, and candid moments that made her relatable. And the best part? She did it all without ever pretending to be someone she wasn't. There was nothing flashy about the early days of her business. No big signs, no storefront, no celebrity clients. Just her bedroom, a portable mirror, and a few ring lights. But Kelvi didn't need fancy. She had vision. She had hustle. She had intention. And anyone who booked an appointment with her didn't just walk out with a new look. They walked out feeling like a better version of themselves. But if there was one person who saw her magic before the rest of the world ever caught on, it was her dad. Their bond wasn't soft or sentimental. It was practical, rooted in laughter, real talk, and shared goals. He was the one she called after her first paid styling gig. The one who'd open her Amazon packages because he was just as excited about a new pair of shears or a mannequin head as she was. He didn't just support her, he collaborated. He gave her game, strategy, encouragement, and more than anything, he gave her time. They were often seen joking around in the kitchen, sharing food, teasing each other over dumb things. But beneath the humor was a deeper language, a language of mutual pride.
Yeah. We go down no matter what, please,
Kelvi wasn't the kind of daughter who hid behind her parents' expectations. She was the kind of daughter who brought ideas to the table. And he wasn't just proud of her for going after her dreams. He respected how she carried herself while doing it. She called herself Kel the Brand, and she meant it. She wasn't just styling clients. She was building a movement. One braid, one press, one confident smile at a time. Every appointment was personal. Every post was curated. Every success, earned. And all of it, every goal she reached, every moment she celebrated, it all happened inside the same house. The same house where she helped her cousins with homework, where she ironed outfits on the floor before early client shoots, where she FaceTimed her friends late at night to talk about business ideas. The same house where she was safe, loved, in control, or at least that's what she thought. But the truth is, while Kelvi was pressing hair and sketching logos at her bedroom desk, she was also keeping the peace with someone who'd already started to unravel. A boy she once trusted. A boy who wasn't supposed to still be living there. A boy she broke up with, but couldn't seem to get out of the house. And the same four walls that had watched her build her dreams, they were about to become the last place she ever felt safe. They started out like any young couple you'd see at a high school dance, smiling through selfies, sharing inside jokes, showing up to prom dressed like they had it all figured out. Kelvi McRae and Keyshawn Shaw met young. And for a while, it really was that simple. A boy, a girl, and a connection that felt easy. Shaw was part of her circle before they ever became official. He was the guy who popped up at community events, who knew her friends, who laughed at the same TikToks. And when they finally did get together, it made sense to the people around them. She was building something, and he seemed to admire that. There were Instagram posts of them together, casual shots, smiling in parking lots, matching energy. It was nothing flashy, but it was public. He was proud to be with her. She let him in. And in the beginning, there were no warning signs. If anything, people thought they were a solid match, two teenagers figuring life out side by side. When prom came around, they made it a moment. The dresses, the tux, the coordinated colors. It looked like the kind of love story people root for. Young, bright, full of potential. But behind the smiles, things weren't always smooth. Their relationship was on again, off again. Heated arguments would spill into long silences. Then he'd come back with apologies, and she'd give him another chance. It became a cycle. Friends would ask if she was okay. She'd shrug it off. Maybe she thought love just looked messy sometimes. Or maybe she didn't want to talk about it yet. What complicated everything even more was when he moved in. Shaw had nowhere to go. No steady home, he said. No fallback plan. And Kelvi, being who she was, soft-hearted, loyal, maybe too forgiving, let him stay. Not just for a weekend. Not for a few days. He moved in. Her family didn't push back. They knew him. He wasn't a stranger. And at the time, it didn't seem dangerous. Just inconvenient. Kelvi was trying to build her future, and now she had someone sleeping under the same roof who wasn't part of the plan. And still, despite the tension, despite the off moments, she said yes. At some point during all of it, Keyshawn proposed. The moment came in a public surprise. He asked, and Kelvi said yes. Whether it was love or pressure, no one knows for sure. Maybe she wanted to believe the best in him. Maybe she thought that things would finally settle if she gave him a little hope. Or maybe she just didn't want to set him off. Either way, she accepted the ring. But a proposal doesn't fix what's already cracked. The longer Shaw stayed in the house, the more fragile the dynamic became. It wasn't just the late-night arguments or the icy silences. It was the way he hovered, the way he questioned her posts, the way he wanted to know who she was with, where she was going, and why. Her friends noticed the shift. She posted less, smiled less, didn't talk about him as much. And Kelvi didn't ask for help. Not yet. Not out loud. She tried to make it work, to keep peace in her space, to push forward with her styling clients while sharing a roof with someone who was slowly becoming unpredictable. She thought she could manage it. But things were already moving in a direction no one could pull back from. By the time winter rolled around, Kelvi was done pretending. The relationship that once brought her comfort had become a storm she couldn't calm anymore. The laughter was gone. The closeness had soured into something heavy. Conversations turned into arguments. Peace turned into pressure. And Keyshawn? He wasn't letting go. From the outside, it still looked quiet. No public blow-ups. No visible bruises. But inside that house, the one Kelvi worked so hard to turn into her creative zone, her studio, her safe space, everything was unraveling. She had tried. Really, she had. When things first started slipping, she didn't run. She gave him time, gave him grace. She wanted to believe he just needed stability, support, a chance to get back on his feet. But every time she pulled back, he pushed in further. He wanted to know who she was texting, where she was going, why her photos looked too friendly. When a male client complimented her work in the comments, Shaw would be in her DMs 5 minutes later, asking questions she was tired of answering. He didn't yell. He didn't break things, yet. He just lingered, always in her space, watching, tracking, silently calculating his next move. He'd show up where he wasn't invited, sit in the room while she did hair, offering awkward silence or unsolicited opinions. He stopped working on himself, stopped trying to move out, and started treating her time, her business, like it belonged to him. Kelvi would vent to friends, but she kept most of it vague. She wasn't the type to overshare. She'd just say, "He's still here," or "He's doing too much." Nobody knew how far it had gone. Not really. And when she finally made the decision to end it, it wasn't dramatic. There was no fight, no yelling, just a boundary she drew with a quiet line. It's over. He didn't move out. He didn't accept it. He stayed. That's what made it so hard. Most people assume when a relationship ends, there's distance. But Kelvi's breakup didn't create space. It created pressure. Because now she was living in the same house with someone who no longer respected her decision. Someone who still acted like they were together. Someone who thought a yes to a proposal meant she couldn't ever say no again. And Shaw didn't just linger. He adapted. He'd go quiet for hours, then suddenly start love-bombing her again. Talking about their future, playing old videos from better times, asking her to remember what they used to be. But the more he tried to pull her back in, the more she resisted. She was focused, working harder, booking more clients, cleaning up her Instagram. She was making moves for her brand, not his ego. And that, more than anything, set him off. Because it wasn't just a breakup to him. It was rejection. It was control slipping through his fingers. And he didn't know how to handle it. He'd ask why she didn't look happy anymore, why she wasn't letting him fix it. And every time she didn't give him the answer he wanted, the tension thickened. He started showing up in her personal time, walking in unannounced, interrupting FaceTime calls, waiting outside when she went to work. She was still sleeping under the same roof, but it no longer felt like home. Kelvi wasn't scared, yet. She was just tired. Tired of pretending it was okay. Tired of working around his moods. Tired of trying to be polite to a person who refused to hear the word no. But that was the problem. He had stopped hearing her. And by the time she realized it wasn't just stubbornness, it was something darker. It was already too late for space, too late for silence, and almost too late for help. It all came to a head on March 5th, 2024, just one day before the end. That afternoon, Kelvi had stepped outside to her car. No cameras, no crowd, just a girl who needed air after another exhausting exchange inside the house. Shaw had been pressing all morning, asking questions, fishing for reassurance, accusing her of seeing someone else. The same tired spiral she was done spinning in. She was trying to leave, just take a breather, maybe head out to a friend's place and reset. But as she sat behind the wheel, trying to catch her breath, she heard the door swing open. He was behind her. Again, she didn't panic at first. Maybe he just wanted to talk. Maybe he'd finally say something that made sense. But that hope vanished the second she saw the gun. He didn't say much, didn't need to. The fear in her eyes said it all. He pointed it straight at her, not in a rage, not yelling, calm, quiet, like he had all the time in the world to decide what he wanted to do with it. Then came the second hit, his hands around her throat. He grabbed her by the neck and squeezed. No build-up, no warning, just a sudden, brutal grip that made her vision blur and her mind scream for survival. She fought him off, somehow, scratched, shoved, reached for the horn, anything to break the moment. And when she finally pushed him away and scrambled back into her car, he lost it. He ran in front of the vehicle, slammed both fists on the hood, and as she tried to reverse, he leapt onto the windshield, smashing it with his bare hands. Glass fractured, her body froze, and just as suddenly, he vanished.
Ever told a nigga that you ain't want to be with them no more? This what the fuck happened. Mind you, I just got my fucking car fixed.
Gone before the neighbors could hear. Gone before the sirens ever sounded. But Kelvi didn't wait around this time. She went straight to the West Palm Beach Police Department and filed a formal report. It wasn't vague. It wasn't emotional. It was specific, detailed, and legally damning. She told them about the strangulation, the gun, the property damage, and most importantly, the threat. She told them he said he'd kill her if she didn't take him back. The officer on duty treated it seriously. It wasn't hard to believe her. Her voice was steady. Her story was airtight. And her fear? It wasn't loud, but it was there, tucked into every line she wrote, every pause between answers. The moment the report was filed, law enforcement moved. They reviewed her statement and quickly issued a warrant for Keishan Shah's arrest. The charges included aggravated assault with a firearm, domestic battery by strangulation, false imprisonment, and criminal mischief for property damage. These weren't misdemeanors. This was serious. He was now officially a wanted man. Officers began tracking him immediately. By that evening, they located his vehicle and attempted to make contact. But Shah wasn't going to make it easy. When they pulled up, he peeled off. A high-speed chase followed, weaving through residential streets in West Palm Beach. It lasted just under 5 miles. At one point, civilians were nearly caught in the chaos. Officers were forced to back off. The pursuit was called off, not because they lost him, but because it became too dangerous to continue without risking other lives. He got away, and for the second time that day, Kelvi was left to rely on a system that had already let him slip through its fingers. She had done everything right. She ended the relationship. She tolerated him longer than she should have. And when things crossed the line, she reported him. But as the sun set over her neighborhood that evening, he was still out there, armed, unstable, with no place to go and no plan, except, maybe, the one he hadn't said out loud yet. Kelvi didn't know where he was. Neither did police. But he knew where she was. And that was the only detail that mattered. The next day was a Wednesday night, March 6th, 2024. Kelvi was home. Tired, maybe, but finally breathing. She'd styled a few clients earlier, eaten late, and now she was settling into something normal, FaceTiming 3 close friends, talking about upcoming projects, laughing about nothing. They'd been on the call for a while, just catching up. Kelvi sat at the dining table, phone propped in front of her, dinner beside her. The call wasn't heavy, just light chatter. One friend was cracking jokes. Another was teasing Kelvi about her latest Instagram story. She smiled, rolled her eyes, reached for her fork. No one was thinking about the day before. Not out loud. No one mentioned the police report, the strangulation, the gun. It was behind her. Or at least, that's what she was trying to believe. She didn't know he was outside. Didn't know he'd come back. Didn't know that, despite being wanted by police, Keishan Shah had found his way to the house again. He didn't break in. He didn't force the door. He had lived there. He knew how to move through that space without setting off alarms. Knew where things were, what would creak, which door was quieter. On the other end of the call, Kelvi's friends could see her screen, could see the soft light in her dining room, her plate of food, the gentle way she kept laughing in between bites. And then, they saw something behind her. It was a blur at first. A shadow. A shape. Kelvi didn't notice at first. She was focused on what someone was saying, half laughing, shaking her head, until the moment her expression changed. She turned, just slightly, and then froze. The silence on the call hit like a slap. One friend said, "Who's that?" Another whispered, "Is that No one finished the sentence. On their screens, they saw her eyes widen, her breath catch, and then, all at once, the moment exploded. Shaw stepped fully into the frame, armed, and opened fire. The call captured everything. The sound, the flashes, the screams. Not just Kelvi's, her friends. Screaming into phones they couldn't use fast enough. Pleading, crying, watching helplessly as their friend, the girl they just laughed with, collapsed out of frame. The FaceTime didn't cut out. It stayed connected. The image jittered. Audio spiked. Then silence. And still, the screen stayed on. The house, now quiet except for the distant, rising chaos of someone's voice yelling her name. Her mother was home. She wasn't in the same room. But she heard the shots, sharp, close, unmistakable. She ran, found Kelvi on the floor. Shaw too. He had turned the gun on himself. Tried to take his own life. But he was still breathing. Kelvi wasn't. Her mother called 911. Her voice was frantic, barely coherent. Meanwhile, the friends on FaceTime hadn't hung up. They couldn't. Some of them tried to call emergency services themselves. One called Kelvi's cousin. Another froze completely, still staring at the screen, hoping, somehow, she'd move again.
Her boyfriend came in and shot at my baby dead.
It's a frantic call for help from a mother. This is what the scene looked like Wednesday night.
And we heard the gunshots in the house. So the son ran. So when I ran in the house, I couldn't get in. The mother let me in, and by that time, this girl she's on the floor.
First responders arrived fast. Within minutes, the block was crawling with flashing lights. Paramedics rushed in. Kelvi and Shaw were both still alive, but just barely. They were transported to St. Mary's Medical Center. Critical. The house, the same house where she'd curled hair, filmed videos, written plans, was now a crime scene. Evidence markers on the dining floor. Blood on the tile. The food she'd barely touched still sitting beside her. Officers started taping off the scene. Neighbors stood outside in shock. One had heard the commotion and tried to get inside before the paramedics arrived, but it was already too late to change anything. News of what happened spread quickly, and within hours, screenshots of Kelvi's last FaceTime moments had already made their way through group chats, timelines, DMs. People didn't want to believe it. Some refused to, because just the day before, she'd done everything right. She reported him. She told the police. She asked for help. But by the time they responded again, she was already on her way to the hospital. Inside the emergency room, trauma teams worked around the clock. For Kelvi, there wasn't much time. Despite everything, the police report, the FaceTime witnesses, her mother's desperate call, Kelvi McCrae was pronounced dead just over 30 minutes after arriving at the hospital. At just 18 years old, doctors did everything they could, but the damage was too severe. Less than an hour later, law enforcement confirmed what they already suspected. Keyshawn Shaw would be charged with first-degree murder if he survived. He didn't appear in court the next morning. He couldn't. He was still in the ICU, still unconscious. And then, early that Thursday afternoon, he died. The man who couldn't let her go was now gone himself. But the wreckage he left behind was too much to settle. The news hit West Palm Beach like a gut punch. One moment, Kelvi McCrae was on FaceTime, laughing, planning, alive. The next, she was gone. 18, killed in her own home, by someone she had once trusted with everything. And this time, it wasn't just a name on a news ticker. People knew her. She wasn't some distant victim in a far-off headline. She had done hair for girls in the neighborhood. She walked those streets. She styled prom looks. She smiled in Instagram reels. She was one of them. And now she was gone. In the days that followed, the grief turned into motion. Vigils were held. Balloons released. Prayers spoken over candlelight. The Riviera Beach Municipal Beach Park became a sea of purple and pink, her favorite colors. People who knew her and people who didn't came to stand in silence, to remember, to process. Her family didn't just show up. They stood tall. Her mother, still reeling from the trauma of seeing her daughter on the floor, spoke through tears.
I hear the shots every day. I see her on the floor every day.
Her uncle, Ricky Aiken, stood at her side and addressed the crowd with clarity and calm. The tragedy isn't just that she died, he said. The tragedy is how she died, and how young she was. There was no vengeance in his voice, no rage, just heartbreak and resolve. He talked about Kelvi's dreams, how hard she worked, how far she was going, and how this could have been anybody's daughter, anybody's niece, anybody's friend.
I wrote in my journal last night that, the tragedy isn't that she died. We all must go the way that Kelvi went. The tragedy is probably in how she died and how old she was when she died.
The beach that night became a place of mourning, but also a place of clarity. Young women began opening up, talking about their own experiences, with possessive partners, with threats they brushed off, with people who just didn't want to let go. Some of them had seen the signs in their own lives, but didn't know what they were looking at until now. Kelvi's story gave them language. Domestic violence advocates began pointing to her case as a turning point, a wake-up call for a generation that often hides pain behind filters and silence. Because on social media, Kelvi looked fine, beautiful, booked, busy, but danger doesn't always come in bruises. Sometimes it comes in subtle control, in isolation, in late-night accusations and emotional blackmail disguised as love. And the more people learned about what happened, the more they realized she did everything right. She filed a report. She told the truth. She gave details. She asked for help. And still, it wasn't enough. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was a systemic failure, a moment where the processes in place moved too slowly to matter. And now, people were angry, not just at the man who pulled the trigger, but at how many chances there were to prevent it. Local organizations started getting more calls. Hotlines rang more frequently. Girls came forward saying they didn't feel safe, but didn't think they'd be believed. Until now. But what lingered most wasn't just the vigils or the speeches. It was the quiet shift in how people started looking at relationships around them. What they were tolerating. What they were excusing. Kelvi's death made one thing heartbreakingly clear. If we wait until it's obvious, it might already be too late. Kelvi McRae wasn't just another statistic. She was a daughter, a friend, a creator, a stylist who built confidence with every braid she laid down. A girl who turned her bedroom into a business. A light that didn't just shine, it made other people glow, too. If there's one thing her story makes painfully clear, it's this. Sometimes, doing everything right still isn't enough. Not because the survivor failed, but because the systems around them didn't move fast enough to protect them. So ask yourself, what does protection really look like? What does support really sound like? And who around you might need it right now, quietly, urgently, but too scared to say so out loud? If you or someone you love is experiencing control, threats, or abuse in a relationship, don't wait. Speak up. You are not alone. Let Kelvi's name remind us not just of what was lost, but of what we still have the power to prevent. She should have had more time. Let's make sure someone else gets to keep theirs. If this story moved you, like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss stories that matter. And if you're still here, leave a comment below. What's one sign of relationship control or abuse that more people need to recognize early? Your words could help someone more than you know.